Hot Seat with the Tenney Group. I'm Spencer Tenney. It's good to be with you. Today, we've got a special edition of the Hot Seat with one of our newest team members, Ryan Moreland. Ryan, welcome to the Hot Seat.
Thank you. Good morning, Spencer.
Well, I'm very excited to allow our network to get to know you a little bit here in this time together this morning. But before we do that, tell us a little bit about your background in the transportation industry.
Sure. Yeah, I've been in the industry now for about 10 years on the logistics side. So started out in brokerage with Covenant and spent about 5 years in operations and then eventually operations leadership. And after that, did about 4 years in sales, everything from TMS, asset models, brokerage, and finished my time there as our director of business development in the brokerage division. And then I did about a year with a smaller company, Sheer Logistics, based out of St. Louis. Focused mostly on TMS sales, a little bit of brokerage, and then I found myself here at Tenney.
Well, we're going to unpack that a little bit more, but thanks for getting us started here a little bit. I'm going to jump right into some rapid fire questions. I want our network to get to know you a little bit. So let's just jump right in here. So these are going to be like 1 to 2 word answers just to kind of get a flavor of what Ryan Moreland's all about. All right, let's start with this. Favorite sports franchise? Go.
Oh, Tennessee Volunteers. I'm going college.
Going college. Okay. It's going off script. That's okay too.
A
That's
little off script, but that's where my heart is, Spencer.
that's okay. Um let's what's the first name of your first girlfriend?
Oh, Brittany.
There we Britney Spears. That was a big deal.
It
And
wasn't
then
Britney Spears, but a man can dream.
okay. Nice. All right. What's your favorite hobby?
Really like camping.
Camping.
Yeah.
Favorite camping spot?
Tellico Plains up in Tennessee.
Nice. Nice. Favorite vacation spot that you and your wife have taken?
New Hampshire. Lake Winnipesaukee up there.
I like it. All right. Do you have kids? And if so, how old are they?
We do. We have one daughter. She's 7 years old in first grade this year.
What was the best advice you got from a high school teacher?
Keep your head down.
Keep your head down.
Yep,
There's probably a backstory for that, I'm sure.
there absolutely is. I used to be quite the troublemaker as a kid.
Well, that's good to know as an employer.
Glad to keep you on your toes, Spencer.
And then my final rapid fire is, why have you continued to stay in this wonderful industry, this wonderfully frustrating and fascinating industry for the last 10 plus years?
You're going to get more than your 1 or 2 words on this one.
Okay.
Logistics, I think, is sort of a culmination of problem solving, strategic thinking, and then more so than anything, maybe relationships. And I didn't know that coming into logistics. Expected it to be trucks, where's my stuff, right? And that to be the focus. And the deeper that I've gotten into the industry, the more I've realized that this whole thing is built on relationships and people. That's what's kept me in it. Is it keeps you thinking, right? Everything's changing every day. There's always a new problem to solve and always new things happening. So for me, it stays exciting. Keeps me talking to new people and having new conversations. And I'm not sure I'll ever get away from it, Spencer.
Well, and it was part of that desire and effectiveness around problem solving that brought you to Tenney Group. And so tell our network what you're doing now and what you'll be doing in the coming months at Tenney Group for our team and for our clients.
Sure. So as a strategic advisor, I'm focused on commercial development of sell-side arrangements for our clients. So spend most of my time speaking to owners or executives at trucking firms, brokerage offices, really anybody in the T&L space. And, my role is to educate and to help progress the conversation when someone starts thinking about an exit from the market, or at least thinking about that option, helping to drive some motivation there and insight on what that process looks like, and then ultimately how Tenney can help them achieve that goal.
Yeah. And so, a lot of times what creates a conversation for our firm is it's a painful problem. So tell our audience about how we typically approach when someone has a painful problem and they are saying, I just throwing my hands up and I want to sell the business. How do we typically handle that? And what can they expect from you when they contact you about that?
Absolutely. So emphasis on the advisor part, right? So we have quite a bit of unique experience. We have gone through hundreds of those conversations and maybe thousands. And really it comes down to what's your end goal. It's easy to get focused on the now problem, right? But I think what we want to encourage folks to do is think about the future. um, and if part of that future is exiting the market or making a change in their business, then that's something that we can be a part of. So we want to help enhance what that vision of the future looks like, focus on things like legacy.
Mhm.
They've worked hard for usually a very long time building that business, and we want to make sure that their next chapter looks just as enriching or just as valuable or even more so than what they've done for so many years.
Yeah. And then as part of that, of course, what we're it's a highly emotional industry, right? So many of
Absolutely.
the folks that they have a problem, and as you and I have even together spoken with business owners in the space just in this last week, it's just, well, hey, if we solve the problem first, do you still want to exit? And then if and then we get mixed feedback around that, right? So like a lot of folks are, well, yeah, if you can solve it, then no, I don't really want to exit. And so I think from us, it's like, well, let's solve the problems first. Let's see if we can create some value. And then if there's still an existing interest in exiting, of course, we'll help you do that. But I think knowing how disruptive and kind of what a roller coaster ride this can be, I think that's why I'm excited about you being a part of our team, is just having that desire and kind of that innate ability to analyze and first solve problems. And then if we're still aligned, we can kind of take that next step. But I'm just really excited about you bringing those skill sets to our clients and helping them navigate both how to solve problems, but also how does that relate to a timetable around exiting. So very excited about that. So let me transition a little bit. You're new. You're new. What but not new to the industry. So what have you learned so far about the work that we're doing here at Tenney Group, and how your abilities and your experience translate and to doing this work at an elite level?
Sure. I think that maybe not Tenney specifically, but just coming into the M&A space in general, I had an expectation or maybe a preconception that things were going to be all about the finances, right? Like, how big a check can we get? What's the biggest offer we can get? How do I get the most financial benefit out of, or financial reward out of what I've created here? And really, what I've learned since being a part of Tenney, and a big part of our focus, is not just the financial component. While that's very important and part of what we've worked for, there's also the impact component. And I've I've found it really it's been really satisfying to see how focused one Tenney is, and then also business owners are on things like making sure the transition is the right thing for the rest of the employees, making sure that the legacy is protected, and the company really has a platform to continue on its current mission. And it's much less about how do I cash out and get out of here, which is maybe a little bit of what I expected before being a part of the space. So that to me has been super satisfying to see that. And then our focus on the values that we have and how we, one, get aligned on potential clients on those same values before we truly engage, and then also how those are shown really throughout the process.
No, I love that. People talk about, I don't know what it is about this industry. I think that's what makes, I don't know if I would feel, the same about doing M&A advisory in a different industry, because to your point, like so many of the folks come to us, they intend to use their liquidity event to impact others, and they're very others focused for whatever reason. And I just think that brings I'm just grateful for that, because it brings a different type of meaning to the work that we're doing. And
Absolutely.
I'm just happy that we get to serve these people. So, so what are you excited about? I mean, for the rest of 2024, 2025, being in this industry, like seeing what's going on in trends, so let's just start there. What are you excited about in terms of the developments that you see in this space and how they affect M&A?
Absolutely. So in my first few months here, I feel like it's been a quick ramp up. It's been a ton of fun. I've learned a lot, and I've had a lot of really good conversations with folks already. So talking to business owners and understanding what their long term goals are, and then what we're seeing now is, I think Spencer, I think we saw 4 LOIs just this week, right? If that's not a sign of things heating up a little bit in the market, then I don't know what is. So to see some traction and start to see some increased level of activity happening in this space tells me that these conversations that I'm having, that I'm enjoying so much, and this activity that I'm seeing, that I'm learning so much about, is just going to continue to accelerate. And that gets me really excited, knowing that we're sort of on the runway right now and it might be time to take off.
So let's talk about preparation. I mean, I think this is where it's kind of home base for you and a lot of the work that you're doing in terms of helping people get in a position so that they have um, access to the strategic options that they desire. And so when business owners are talking to you about, like, Ryan, all right, how do I think about preparing and timing an exit? What information are you sharing with them?
Absolutely. I think, this is something Meg and I covered at a recent industry event when we were speaking to the group. And, the biggest thing for me is always to coach owners to get out of the day to day as much as they can, right? Because what a buyer doesn't want to see is, man, if I unplug this person who's selling their business, if I unplug that individual, the house of cards falls down because they've got their hands in everything, right? They're essentially running the business. Um, so it's one of the hardest things to do as a leader, I think, or it was difficult for me, is to take your hands off of it a little bit, make sure you have the right people in the right place, and they're encouraged to make decisions without you. Um, that they can do that without your support. You're always there, but that business will run effectively without you physically present in the business. So that's one thing, is to make sure that they've built something sustainable that they don't have to drive every day.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second thing is kind of get your house in order, right? And one of those things is the reporting that you have on the business. That's how you give others insight into kind of how the business is doing. That's both financial and operational. But when you're able to clearly show those things to a group like us who can help advise you on what changes might need to be made, or down the road, potentially someone who might be considered a buyer, being able to show those things in a clear way is going to streamline every process from that point forward.
Mm-hmm.
So those
I
are
love
two
that.
big items that I'd highlight.
No, no, I think that's great. So you mentioned the broker carrier summit, which is in Kansas City here, literally just days ago. Um, you and our chief commercial officer Meg Muir co-presented a seminar in that um for that event. You highlighted a couple things. What were some of the other takeaways that came from that presentation that our network might want to be aware of?
Absolutely. So what we went through was what we call our playbook, ways to create and protect business value, right? Specifically for T&L companies. Some of the other things that we talked about, so we talked about the two things that I mentioned, and then Meg shared a story about a business owner who had a vision of growing their company. I believe it was a brokerage company, from 10 branches to 25 branches before they exited the business, right? That was sort of their end goal. I think along with a number and employee count and things like that, but they wanted to go from 10 physical locations to 25 locations. And each time they added a location throughout this process, you saw the business itself, revenue, profitability, etc., took a small dip every single time. Every single time that they added a location, the business became slightly less efficient. And sort of what the story ended up telling us was, while growing your presence geographically and your number of locations, and that was the goal, you were affecting the business in a negative way. And it took opening several different locations to figure that out, right? And so what this vision or measure of success was from this particular owner turned out to be detrimental to the business value. So it's one of those things that we were able to coach on and sort of show that progression. And when you can take a step back or maybe have an outside set of eyes like our team,
Mm.
take a step back and look at what's happening, put that story and that picture together, um, you can see more clearly what effect it's truly having on the business. And then another story that we shared, which I think these directly relate to how to create value in the business, is a customer that was focused on having 400 clients. They wanted to just sign up new bill twos, right? Sign up new clients, spread sort of the birth, right, of who they were working with. And as they did that, there became less customer concentration, which was a good thing, right? They weren't 25% or so reliant on one client. But as they diversified their customer base, the relationship started suffering with each one of them because each was getting less attention. And again, we saw the same thing. Efficiency in the business was decreasing. So what was ended up coaching that person to do was focus on like the top 50 or 100. That's great diversification, and really narrow that focus down and execute on the profitable business where you have strong relationships, and sort of changed that course from how many customers can I get to how much quality can I have with these customers, regardless of how many there are.
No, and I love that. And I think people that tune in and they um, just really lean in on our content. They're like, wait a minute, are you guys talking out of both sides of your mouth? Because I know I've heard Spencer say that in order to attract and excite investors, you need to have a compelling growth story that captures their imagination.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 100% true. But I think I really appreciate you making the point, because what we're really talking about is not just growth, we're talking about smart growth. And that's what investors care about. So as we're thinking about strategy development, you're thinking about value creation, it's really critical that you're building and you're investing in growth in a way that translates to actual value creation. Because what you don't want to do is grow problems as part of that top line revenue growth. We're hoping for the opposite. So, a couple more questions here. Many times, folks, will be at events across the industry, 50 plus a year, and they'll say, like, when I'm thinking about selling or whatnot, that's when I'll contact Ryan. Where's there a blind spot there?
So I think the blind spot is that as business owners, we should understand our options that are at our disposal really at all times, right? We're constantly evaluating this part of our business, that part of our business. We may not be planning to exit the business tomorrow, but we should know what that looks like should that day come. And understanding what an exit looks like helps shed a lot of light on what the path looks like to get there, right? You think about, Spencer, you and I, we're planning for retirement every day, right? We may not be thinking about it every day, but if you're planning well for what things look like at that point, then that's going to encourage you to put all the right things in place, take the right steps now, and really make sure you're in the right position when that day comes. It could be a
Right.
year from now, it could be 10 years from now, but starting that conversation now is important to understand where you're going and where you want to be when you get
All right. I like that. All right. Final question, little wild card in pure hot seat tradition here.
there.
So tell us, let's just imagine that we're talking to young Ryan, uh, you know, and he's coming out of high school. What advice would you give to yourself if you're going back in time about being a successful professional in any career?
That's a good one. I think that I would encourage young Ryan to start building a network, and start building a network of the folks that you want to emulate, the folks that you look up to. Maybe get on like LinkedIn or something a little bit earlier, or start going to industry conferences, et cetera, like we've been doing, uh, and just get involved. So, 18-year-old Ryan didn't know he wanted to be in logistics. Uh, 21-year-old Ryan didn't know he wanted to be in logistics. But if I could have coached to say, look, this is what you're going to do, this is what you're going to be good at, then I think I would have encouraged to say,
Mm.
build that network, right? Find a way to get in touch with guys like Spencer, guys like, you know, the team that I worked with at Covenant, that leadership, people like Meg, and find a way to get to know these people and define your version of what you want to be. And, choose the right people to look up to, I think is the moral of that story.
I love that, and I'll just put a small add-on to that. Um, I think that continues on your whole career, right? And I think the folks that have exited, some of our kind of uh, all-star clients that have won at the closing table, and then they've also just flourished in that next chapter of life. It's typically because that discipline that you just described, they have continued that. And so pretty much the world was their oyster following this liquidity event because they had just a very deep and robust network of contacts that really just gave them a lot of options to continue to do work that matters. And so I think that's a great word, Ryan. I'm really glad that you're with us here at Tenney Group. We've got a bright future. That's going to do it for us in the hot seat. We'll see you next time.